Right, so we've got two lights here, both 60 watt, both made by Godox, but which one should you buy? The SL60w or the UL60? You could even get two of the SL60Ws for the same price as one of the UL60s. So that would allow you to have a little bit more flexibility and more options with your lighting, but it all comes down to what you actually need. So in this video, I'm going to compare both lights side by side, give you some examples, and point out the main features as well, which will hopefully make your decision a little bit easier. But before we get into the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more gear reviews, tutorials, and reaction breakdowns as well, and hit the bell to get notified of new videos when I upload them. So probably the most important distinction to point out first is the fact that the UL60 has DMX control. So if you're going to be programming lights or you want control over multiple lights, then this is the way to go, because the SL60w doesn't have DMX control. So a point there for the UL60. One of the biggest complaints about the SL60w was the loud fan. Now personally, I've never had an issue with it because it's usually behind the camera and far enough away from the microphone that it doesn't pick up any of that fan noise. Never had a problem, so it doesn't bother me. But if you are doing something like a podcast or an interview and you need a silent room, then the UL60 is going to be much better for you because it's got a fanless, noiseless design. It's whisper silent. I say whisper silent, but it's just silent. There's no whisper about it. So I'm going to show you the difference now. I'm going to turn on the SL60w. I'm going to put the microphone really close to it. Same with the UL60 and see if you can tell the difference. Right, ready? Okay, now I'm going to put the UL60 right next to the microphone, switch it on and see if you can hear it. Here we go, prove it's on. Nothing, not a peep. You wouldn't even know it was on. So yeah, if you're conscious about the noise in your studio or wherever you're filming and you need absolute silence, the UL60 is the way to go. So the build quality of the SL60w is absolutely fine. I've never had a problem with it. It's not broken. I've never dropped it. It's part plastic, part metal design. It's fairly well built, but I can imagine if you are taking it out on a lot more jobs than I have, then you're probably going to want something a little bit more robust, such as the UL60. It's got a much better design. The mounting bracket is a lot better. You can mount it from the ceiling. Just feels a lot sturdier and much higher quality. So if you are going to be doing a lot of jobs and throwing it in the back of a car or a van, this is going to probably last a little bit longer. Having said that, if you look after your stuff, it's not really a problem. So much like the SL60w, the UL60 doesn't come with its own case, but I've done some digging and I've actually found this on Amazon. So I'll leave a link below, but it's a great little bag, perfect size to fit the light in here. And then you've got a couple of pockets on the front and the back where you can actually put your control box and all your cables, and it's padded. So it's a perfect little case. So there you go. So the SL60w can be controlled either by the back panel or the remote that's included, whereas the UL60 can be controlled using the control box that you get with it, which I think is really good. Like for example, if you've got the light high up on a stand, you can't reach the top of the panel. Having that control box mounted on the stand or somewhere near the stand is so much better. I mean, it's not a huge issue because if you've got remotes, then you just point the remote. It doesn't matter how high up it is anyway. You can also use the remotes with the UL60 as well as the app. It doesn't have the panel on the back. It'd be nice to have that. For whatever reason, it's not on there because you need the box to run that light. It actually comes with all the cables that you need to get started with this, but it doesn't have the DMX cables. If you do need that feature, then you'll have to get your own cables for that. And it's got this little hangy thing so you can hang it from your light stand like that, which is really helpful. So another point to the UL60 there. Now you can only power the SL60w via the mains, whereas on the UL60 you can power it via the mains or V-mount battery, which I think is amazing. It's so beneficial to have the option of battery powered lights because you never know where you're going to be. You might be filming on an outdoor location, for example, or somewhere where they haven't got access to power. So having a V-mount option is amazing. So V-mount battery, winner. So although they're the same output, it's worth noting that the SL60w only goes down to 10%, whereas the UL60 goes all the way down to 1%, which might make you think, well, what's the point in that? But it's really handy if you're using one of these lights in the background, for example, and you don't want it too bright. It's really useful to be able to go down all the way to 1%. It just gives you that extra 9% control over your light, which is worth it, trust me. The only difference I did notice was when I put the reflector on, but that's down to the new style reflector, you get more of a brighter middle point when you put that reflector on. Whereas on the SL60w, it doesn't make that much of a difference. It just spreads it slightly differently. Now they both say they've got a good colour accuracy, quite high, but I did notice that the UL60 was slightly more pinky magenta-y than the SL60w. Now you can compensate for this either in your camera or when you're colour grading afterwards, so for me it's not a big deal. The only thing to think about is if you've got more than one light, you ideally want them to match up. So if you've got an SL60w and a UL60 for example, they're gonna be slightly different, and that's not ideal because you don't want two different colours, and that's when you start colour grading things. Some areas of your frame are going to look slightly odd, so it's going to be difficult. My advice there is to make sure that all your lights that you're using are the same or as close as possible, or just choose the one that you prefer the most. I actually don't mind the SL60w. I think it's a bit more pleasing, but it's personal taste and you can change that in post anyway. So for me, for someone like who's just doing YouTube videos, it's not a big deal. It's really not a big deal. There are no built-in effects on the SL60w, but if you do need effects, then go for the UL60, and you can control those using the control box as well as the app. So as you can see, the UL60 has a lot more going for it than the SL60w, but you pay an extra and it doesn't mean that you need them. If I need them for a particular project, I'd probably build that into the cost of the job. If you don't really need it for your day-to-day filming, it's probably a waste of money really, because you're buying something that you're never going to use. If you do need all the extra features that this has to offer, then that's the route to go down, obviously. If what you're doing is YouTube stuff and you've just got a setup like this, like I've got here, I don't need anything more from this light other than what it's doing right now. It's a 60 watt light, it's the ML60, there's a video up here. That is all I'm using it for. I don't need effects, I don't need to change the colours. So if you didn't need the extra, I would recommend going for two SL60Ws, and you can have slightly different lighting setups. You've got more options there. You could have a key light facing you here, and then you could have some sort of rim light or hair light from the second light behind you, for example. Or you could light the background. You know, there's so much you can do with two lights, and you're paying the same for two you will be for one. So all it comes down to is your needs. So I'd be interested to know which one is for you. Let me know in the comments. If you want to see more comparison videos, gear reviews, tutorials, reaction videos and all that stuff, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the bell to get notified. Thanks so much for watching. I hope this has helped. See you in the next one.